Welcome, everybody. We are continuing Shara Yichud. And we just learned in the portion of Tanya yesterday. The portion of Tanya for yesterday, for Wednesday, was the 33rd chapter of Tanya. And over there it says that the delving deeply into the subject which we study brings happiness to a person. And he brings two metaphor. He brings the idea of the metaphor of how there's nothing besides God, because everything is inside God, like ideas inside a brain before the brain even created the ideas. And that's why the creation doesn't really change God in any way at all. And then he brought a physical metaphor, the idea of light. The light inside the sun is totally nullified to the actual body of the sun. So that's that way, that is the world compared to God, even after it's created. And he says that this is the purpose of man, to delve into these ideas and similar ideas. And this creates that God dwells in our brain. When we focus on these ideas, God dwells in our brain. And then Habakkuk, the prophet in the Bible, said that really all the commandments, the entire Torah, stands on this one commandment of the oneness of God. Because through this one commandment, a person is really happy, and he inspires a person to fulfill all the other commandments. And not only this is the purpose of man, but we actually can be really happy, double happiness. Not only it brings happiness to us because we connect with our deep self, but he also brings happiness to God, the fact that his mission in the world is being accomplished when we think about these things. So now we're really delving into the details. So let's look inside and let's start reading. Chapter 31. There is also a superiority in vessels over lights. That in vessels you can create a bigger holistic system than with lights, because the main idea of tikkun, which is the opposite of chaos, of order, of a fixed civil order, it's through vessels. The way you get order, the opposite of chaos, is with a lot of vessels. So therefore, I mean, if two parties are negotiating between them, the way you get to a negotiation is not by all or nothing thinking. It's by dividing up the entire conversation into many little vessels. Because perhaps it's possible, if we divide up the conversation into many little vessels, to be able to fulfill the needs of both sides, and they don't need to be waging a war. In fact, I just saw inside a Sikh of the Rebbe that the Rebbe says that you don't really know what's actually happening. You don't need to be following the newspapers because you don't really know what's the truth. But when we add in Torah, add in prayer, add in giving good kindness, that causes that divinity be revealed inside us. And then it causes the nations of the world to divinity to be revealed on them, and they make the right decisions. They will make enough vessels to be able to come to a peaceful resolution. And specifically, what type of vessels? The most exterior vessels. That's what makes the opposite of chaos. The most exterior vessels, that's what we need to focus on. And making a lot of them. We find that the light of kindness can shine in a vessel of the opposite, in the or light of in a vessel of thickness. So in other words, a light of kindness means an intention of kindness can actually be expressed through a behavior of strictness. And also a behavior of an intention of strictness in a vessel of kindness. That's what we call a spy. The vessel is kindness. He behaves in a nice way, makes parties for everybody, but the intention is strictness because he gathers information and puts everybody in peril. Now, all he's bringing over here is that the light is able to shine in a opposite vessel. Now, why can't it work that two different lights should be able to coexist? Why is it that the light or the intent of kindness cannot handle judgment klal at all? Klal, totally, not at all. Right? Two opposite intents cannot deal with each other. We have to say that this is because of a vessel, because a vessel is able to handle more than one. It can handle the opposite light. Because so in other words, a behavior can handle a different intent. Because vessels have this wonderful thing that they're able to unite one thing and its opposite. It's like putting in a plate. You could in a vessel you can put jam and you can put tuna fish. It's gonna fit. However, that this doesn't happen with the lights. The lights, it's called like frequency interference. Two radios, two frequencies using the same airspace can jam up the radio frequency. And I'm using radio because we spoke last week. Radios are a beam of light. Radios work with line of sight. They're like a beam of light. We just don't see it, the light, but they definitely two frequencies do disturb each other. And this is the idea of tikkun, of fixing something, and that's the way a man's body is set up, a human body. Just like we see with our senses, the nature of the limbs of a person, every single vessel is able to include in it from a different vessel. We can actually fix up we're learning a little bit about holistic medicine. We can actually fix up a lacking in one vessel through healing another vessel. Kamai, for example, lakilkul hares ba'ayin. If you have a problem with the vision of the eye, you can actually strengthen the veins in the feet, and by strengthening the veins of the feet, because the veins of the feet have a web to connect to the veins in the eye. However, if you cannot heal the feet, use the feet to heal the eyes, if we're speaking about the weakness of the mind. If the white mind becomes weak, and because of that, it cannot see because of old age, So by fixing the feet, he's not going to get a better vision. But if it's a problem in the physical vessel of the eye, so then you can work with improving the feet, and the physical vessel of the eye will improve. Now you cannot heal the eye or the brain through strengthening the emotions in the heart. Even though the brain and the heart include from another, but by improving the emotions of the heart, you don't get a better brain. That's if we're just dealing with emotions. But if you actually heal the physical vessel of the heart, right? Deep ribos, the appropriate exercise. There's a sugar called deep ribos, vitamins, natural vitamin C from lemon. So this is going to strengthen the vessel of the brain. Interesting. And then by healing the physical brain, then the brain, the physical brain, the intellect is going to get stronger, and the person is going to be able to see better. Because when we're speaking about light, the intellect and the emotion, the spiritual aspects, or in other words, the intangible aspects, the computing aspects of the brain, and the emotional intelligence of the heart, they don't really have an interface, such a great interface. Unlike the actual physical heart and the physical brain, they do have tremendous amount of interface, physical interface. So you can heal one, and by healing one, you can strengthen one and heal the other. The vessel of the eye is connected with the vessel of the nose. The kliya oizen, and it's connected with the vessel of the ear. This is the eye, nose, ear specialists, because they're all connected. So if you strengthen one, you strengthen another. Because in the vessel, you could have the opposite energy, the opposite light inside it. Can we scroll down? And this whole concept we can be able to see in what we see in the emotions of kindness and strictness, because kindness and strictness are really the opposite. But when they come into a vessel, for example, when a certain emotion is now a thought, a speech, or an action, but in actuality, so the intent of kindness can shine in the mind, speech and action, and do the opposite. It's actually possible to think and speak and do the opposite of what's in a person's heart. That's called like cognitive behavioral therapy. You can behave differently, and that's going to change the emotions. So he's able to do the opposite, what's in his heart. It's possible that a person will have anger on his friend, in his heart, and it's possible to have compassion in his heart on his enemy. Yeah, this is for example, when people take prisoners of war. It's possible to have compassion in his heart on his enemy. Because the heart is able to be a vessel to what is opposite. Because in vessels you have you can have a holisticness more than in light. The Masha Begila Yesh Rada, Beregas Yesh Rachamim, Hein Lahepach, Berada Gila, Berachmim, Beregas Akomasad Klidavka. This that we say, the Begila, Gila is a certain type of internal happiness. Yesh Rada, you can have a fear, a shaking fear, trembling fear. Overegas in anger, Yesh Rachamim, there's compassion. Hein Lahepach, and also the opposite, in compassion, there's some anger. In trembling, there's happiness. Brada Gilan, so in traveling happiness. Barachamim in compassion, regus, anger. Akol mitzadakli dafka. This is all because of vessels. Kachanu matim bavavim meibeshis. This we find in the 6 days of creation. Shabiyim echad hu bechinas chesed. The first day, the main intent of the first day, the main theme of the first day is kindness. You hear light, create, let there be light. Biyim base, and the second day bechinas gura. The theme is being strict. You hear Irakia, make there be, let there be a division in the sky. The commission of the Zohar, like it says in the Zohar, the Chol Yema Avidite, that every single day has its theme. It does its theme. But every day, it's not just like one theme. There is a certain inclusion from one day to the other. Specifically, because when an intent, a light comes in a vessel, it's called day. Then there is a holistic inclusion of one thing in the opposite, specifically, Leah being because when something comes to be delivered, in actuality, it's impossible that in kindness there shouldn't be any focus, and in focus there shouldn't be some kindness. Which is not the case when the energy still doesn't have a vessel. Once we scroll down, when we're making a psak din, an action, a court ruling, in the end, there has to be some kindness in the strictness, and the strictness in kindness. But this is not the case when we don't need to get into the make a decision for actuality. When there's actuality, things need to be nuanced, small little details. Some things are going to be more strict, some things are going to be focused. In the external part of the vessel, which is the implementation aspect of the vessel, which is the action aspect of the vessel, there is a holistic inclusion of different emotions. Now, let's go on. Whoa. No, we didn't. We need to change the page already? A second. You want to listen? Okay. How it seems like there is a contradiction to this, because to all of what we've said, because this that a light can express itself in an opposite vessel. In other words, an intent can express itself in the opposite behavior. That's because the vessel has a certain nullification to the light. And in Kabbalah, what gives the ability of a vessel to be able to accept opposite of light, that's because it has the nullification to do what it's told. And this comes from the name of God, which when you spell it out, has the same numerical value as 45. Because inside the vessels is the name of God, which that allows the vessel to hold other things. He's not particular. He has humility. So that name of God, Sherish Bechinas Iskalos Be'eres, that is the beginning of lights becoming becoming holistic. Dafka Mitzad Haaretz Hakav, and that is because the name of God, Ma, has the energy of the Kav, the original ruler, which is able to remeasure things. And for this reason, specifically in internal vessels, there is a certain holistic in the internal vessels. For example, when we have intent, a mental intent in this, and an action of mitzvahs, we can actually include two opposites. Which is not the case in action. So what we're speaking about, an internal vessel is intent. External vessel is action. And he's saying that even in internal vessel, which is intent, you could have two intents. You can have internal, and bone is like the intent. The gidim is the nerves, which gives the feelings. And the muscle, no, I'm not sure, I forgot. Okay, let's just put that aside. And he's saying, the external vessel, you can only do one thing at a time. In intent, you can have more than one intent. For example, angels have a rule that angels are lower than the humans, and they're not able to do two missions and that's because they are an external vessel. The angel is an implementive spiritual being, so he only can do one thing at a time. Basically, what they do is they just move the energy. For example, the vessel of letters, you can't, you can't. Once you write a letter in a certain way, it can't be the opposite. It's going to be just a mess. So we say the face of the lion is on the right side of the golden God's chariot. And what a chariot really means is that the lower things on the totem pole, on the Merkava, on the chariot, serve the higher things. So, and also angels don't change their missions. They just do their job. They stick to their job. They're not as flexible as humans, but they're reliable. And that's why the face of the lion is on the right side, because a lion, internal emotion is very loving. If anybody watches the behavior of lions when they're not hungry, is they are very emotional and very loving. But they're wild. Don't forget that they're wild. So, but they're on the right side because they're real. Their internal emotion is a lot of passion. And they're not going to change their job. And then they don't become like monkeys. You know what I mean? They're not going to become friends with monkeys and start eating bananas. The same thing, angels, because the lions in this world come from the lion in the Merkava, and the lion in the Merkava is just a type of angel. And we're just saying that angels, they don't change their jobs and they don't become friendly with the people they're not friendly with. And that's what we say every single day has its thing, has its theme. So now we're utterly confused. So let's continue reading. Let's scroll up. Achainian. So now let's understand what's going on. So we don't know what is creating the flexibility over here. Is it the internal or is it the external? So Achinyan Mishum the Pnimis Akelim Hu Makabel Mebechinas Erpnim. The internal vessel, which is in the union of intent, it gets an internal light, Hamukbal Bekli, which is limited in the vessel. V'kasher yes iskalos be'eris. And when there is some unity and you joining in the lights, automatically the internal vessels unite, because the vessel of thought serves the light. So if the intent allows for others, so the vessel of the brain of the thought does that as well. For example, the excitement and the understanding of divinity of the angel of Michal, which is kindness, the theme of kindness, for Gabriel, the theme of strictness. And when they come together to serve God, they make their peace. And the external vessel is really the ability to limit. That comes from a certain energy, from the aloof energy, which that energy allows for limits or powers the limits. And that's why you can have two opposites at the same time, because you actually include davar v'hipuche, something in the opposite, dafka specifically, something and its opposite in one thing. That's the external vessel. All miracles that happen in this world specifically through external vessels. In actuality, basically we say each place which had a miracle, it means that this place is holy in the fact that it could handle a paradox. It can handle higher than nature. And like transforming the sea to dry land by the splitting of the sea, or kahai gavna, similar things. Mokum arin enaminamida. The place of the holy tabernacle cannot be measured. What that means is that if you measure from wall to wall in the Holy of Holies, you get one measurement, you get 10. But then when you measure from the wall to the side of the Holy Ark, you get 5. So it turns out that somehow that we measure one way and it does take space. If we measure another way, it doesn't take any space. And like it is written in another place, Kol echad mugdaval b'fnei atzmei. And also this is the beginning of division, that each thing could be limited by itself. This ability to divide and limit, it comes from that original ruler that measures, that also measures out from the outside, and basically that kav is the beginning and the source of vessels that limit. And that's why the main opposite of chaos is when a person has way so many divisions. And that is why there can be so much unification from one thing and the opposite. And this is the main idea of the man, the organized man. It says that God created me from the front and the back. From the back and the front. He formed me. He formed me specifically with a body, with a concrete body. First, God created a simple matter, that which came before the design, the energy design. Which that's the light. Then this is because vessels come before the light. So that's what he says. He formed me light. In other words, the first thing that he formed is my physical. However, and that's the kedem. And achar, the last thing is about kliya chumra she'achar ha'ervatura. Oh, so first he creates matter, then he creates the light, then he creates the matter of the body with the light inside it, shaping that body. Vidal, and whatever we explained now, it's enough for the understanding. It's explained in another place. This concept at very length. Vidal, and this is enough for the understanding.
Can you give us? Can you now take that and summarize that? What we just learned and where it took us to. What did we gain new now?
We learned the function of vessels, and we learned that there is people who think that when you have light and you have matter, the energy is much greater value. And what we've learned, that the function of matter can actually affect the energy in a way that creates a beautiful synergy. In other words, synergy does not come from energy. Beautiful, settled synergy comes from many appropriate vessels. And there's sometimes, you have three types of vessels. There's the internal vessel, which holds intent. There's the middle vessel that expresses emotion. An external vessel is action. And even though the actions are all divided from each other, but they're able to serve different intents. And because of that, you can have many different types of actions working together. Even though an action can only be one specific thing at a certain time, nevertheless, it can handle various intentions. So the more vessels, the better. And there's a certain unification also in the internal vessel, the fact that we can have more than one intent, that also gives space to various different things to come together. I mean, there's many applications in this, And one of these applications is how does one person control their emotions when the emotions are overwhelming? And the way to do that is to create more vessels. And we need to realize that these vessels were actually created by God even before the lights were. Up. Hope that's enough. Any questions?
What would be an example of creating more vessels?
I don't hear you very well. Could you speak a little louder or speak into the mic?
What would be an example of creating more vessels? You're better?
Yeah, much better.
So what would be an example of creating more vessels? What would be an example of creating more vessels?
I'm just trying to. What's the context? Like, what are you asking in which context? Because
Well,
I can't.
you gave me an example of overwhelming emotion. Person, how are they going to manage their emotions? They're having an overwhelming emotional experience. You said create more. The answer is to create more vessels. So what would be an example of that?
Well, you need to find out what is the purpose of this emotion, and is there certain behaviors that can fulfill that? Like, do I need to feel freedom? Do I feel trapped? Do I need to feel freedom? Well, don't do just one thing to feel free, but you also need to come on time. You need to be reliable. You need to be able to be dependable. So you can have once a week, you're going to go to exercise in the gym. And another time you're going to come and you go to a Fabragan. And a different thing, you're going to wake up early in the morning and go for a bike ride. If you want to feel free, so you need to do many things for that emotion. And then a person is going to be content because they've served it with many different vessels. Like going for a bike ride because it's fun, because I feel free when I'm riding a bike. That is a vessel because that's a specific behavior with a specific intent. But if you want to create harmony in your life, do many vessels. Don't just go for a bike ride. Do some painting, play some music, do other things as well to create many vessels for that intent. You can also try to find if there's any other purposes of this emotion and try to serve them as well with different vessels. And then you can have something wonderful happening, that a person is doing something because they enjoy it, because they're serving others, because they feel free, and because it's the responsible thing to do. So you're going to have many intents in vessels. So you have to make try to capture as many intents as possible and to do as many vessels as possible.
Okay. Thank you for explaining. Any other questions? People could type in the participants can type in the chat box. And Rabbi Chirk loves to answer questions. If you don't ask more questions, Rabbi Chirk is going to wait until you ask the questions. Okay. So anything else want to add, Rabbi Chirk, or we'll go to the parsha?
Let's go to the Parsha.